So welcome everybody today to Dashboard Design. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Steve Wexler. Steve is the author of 2 leading books. We're going to talk more about each of these. He's got out The Big Book of Dashboards and The Big Picture that I just got in the mail, I think 2 days ago. So I started skimming it.
That one's not out yet. And that
when does it
doesn't come
officially
out.
come out?
It comes out officially May 18th. So you are one of a handful of civilians to actually get your hands on this thing.
It's great. Okay, well, you all can officially grab it May 18th. Well, we'll talk more about both of these books. But first up, Steve, how do we know each other? I'm curious what your take is and what your memory is.
And so my memory of this is, I can't remember how I became familiar with your work. Whether it was Twitter or LinkedIn, but I think I contacted you because I was a fan and I was going to be in Washington, D.C. And just wanted to connect with you. I just liked what you were writing and what you were bringing to the discussion. And little known fact, I actually tried to recruit you to be one of the authors on the Big Book of Dashboards. That was back in the late 1950s, I think. As I think you would have, I wanted to find people that had different backgrounds, different takes on things, different approach to it, and different perspective. Sorry that didn't work out, but my memory was, gee, I really like this person's work. I want to meet her when I'm in Washington, D.C. I don't know if you have the same one.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we connected over Twitter. Maybe we tweeted back and forth. I'd been blogging for a while. I know you've been blogging for a while, but I remember you being one of the first friendly faces who kind of welcomed me into the Dataviz field. And I don't know, you get this like misperception that everybody's really competitive and is rude to it. I haven't had that experience at all. Everybody I've met in the Dataviz field has been fantastic.
You look at the dedication that's at the front of the book. It's like to the generosity and nurturing nature of the Dataviz community. There are a handful of out and out jerks in the community, but for the most part, people are they're really good eggs and want to help other people succeed. In any case, I just loved what you were doing then. I love what you're doing now. It's just like a beacon of clarity and succinctness and the audience in mind. I just really liked your work.
Thanks. And I wish I could have been an author on that book. Maybe your next book. I don't know if there's a third one in the works, but I think I had just had my first baby. I think, were you working on this book, on the Big Book of Dashboards, maybe 5 years ago or so?
Yeah,
the right timeline.
By the way, the gestation period for these things is pretty long. From when you first come up with the idea to when you actually see it, the physical manifestation of it. So this would have probably been contacted you summer of 2015. Got Andy on board, Andy Cotgreave, who's the chief technical evangelist at Tableau. By the way, both books are totally tool agnostic. They're not about how do I do something in Excel, Tableau, Click, Power BI. It's here's what you should be doing and why. And then you have to figure out in the tool how to get what you're doing. So yeah, so I think summer of 2015 sounds right to me.
Well, what are you currently doing? Because we would have met up, a million years ago. How has your work shifted? What are you up to these days?
The last 2 years have been spent writing the big picture. Very different audience. It's not for the practitioner. It's not for the person who's creating charts and dashboards and reports. It is for the people that need to consume them and need to realize how transformative a good data visualization can be. In any case, that took a lot of time. And transitioned to doing all the stuff that I was doing in person with these, dashboard design workshops and the like. I live and breathe on Zoom, and I'm profoundly grateful that they have breakout rooms. I want a small group of people to be discussing this stuff. How can I make that happen easily? So looking forward though to doing some of the stuff in person And I think in the not too distant future.
I'm guessing 2022, like early 2022. I don't know. You
I
think
think
this year? Maybe.
yeah, I think sooner than that some of the user group presentations and the meetups and things like that um, um, it- are going to be happening in person. I think it's going to be happening mid to late fall because I want it to happen. I have no idea if that's really warranted or not.
And I don't want it to happen because I'm enjoying working with exercise shorts on the bottom in my flip flops.
I hear you, but look, I don't want to get too, entrenched in minutia on this stuff, but um, so the bread and butter workshop I've been doing for the last 4 years is the dashboard design workshop. And when I was doing it in person, it was, an all day thing. And, you can have the most riveting, charismatic instructor on the planet, someone like yourself, but a day, start to finish with this person, it's pretty tough. It's tough on the instructor. It's tough on the participant. And when you go to this virtual environment, it's very easy to say, hey, let's break this into 2 half days. Let's break this into 4 2-hour segments. Whereas if people are traveling someplace, you can't do that. You can't just, have that type of luxury. So in many respects, the virtual environment, has worked really well because you're not asking someone to spend that full day. And by, the last hour and a half, they're probably pretty saturated. So that's kind of my take on this. But I miss, and you said that you're an extrovert. I have discovered to my surprise, I'm an ambivert, kind of in between and more leaning towards introvert. Um, but I miss the energy that comes from a good back and forth with an audience. It's why I also like people to, show themselves in Zoom meetings, that it's just how bored are they? Oh, I can see. Pretty damn bored. So.
Okay, on that note, let's actually hear from some of the people that we've got here. So everybody type your intros into the chat so Steve can get to know you and your background. Let us know who you are and what you do. I'll read out a couple of them. Let me open up my chat. And I've met, I think, everybody here, but sometimes I get your faces and names flip-flopped. Melissa is an epidemiologist. Yeah. You want to read some off, Steve?
Melissa? Where in New York?
Hi, I'm in Albany, in the capital.
Hey, okay. I'm in Westchester County.
Oh, all right. I'm a little north of you. Okay.
Yep.
Kathy does evaluation for public health programs. Ellen's in Albuquerque, working with a small nonprofit and their small database. Demia is a public health educator at the NIH. Elizabeth is a research analyst in criminal justice for King County, Washington. Shauna's an evaluator at, I tried to say that name on a past session, didn't I? I think I wrote down the
Cuyahoga.
Cuyahoga. Okay, that's what I was saying in my mind, but thank you. Thank you for your patience every single time. And Shauna, you're trained as a quantitative sociologist. Wow. Audrey's an epidemiologist with the Tennessee Department of Health. So Steve, you've got a lot of data people who've purposefully gone into data roles. No surprise there. And a lot of public health people. Not everybody's public health, but looks like we've got a good amount of public health people here. Even Russell's at a medical school. Great. Stephanie, you do disaster operations. I don't know if I knew that about you. Anne-Marie is in the Netherlands. That's why we held this at noon Eastern. So we wouldn't be asking Anne-Marie to wake up in the middle of the night. Cool. All right. So Steve, what did you do though prior to your data revelations and book writing work?
Wow, what a weird career. There's a data visualization about it. My background is as a musician. That's what I got my training in and my master's degree in. But after plying my trade for a while, I needed to supplement my income. I got into personal computers, ended up doing a lot of consulting on Excel and Word, and did a lot of work with and for Microsoft, then ran my own software company, sold off the assets of that, founded a startup, couldn't keep funding it. So for the first time in my life, 15 years ago, I had to find a job. And I ended up contacting some friends and colleagues that ran an organization called the E-Learning Guild. It's now called the Learning Guild, and it's thousands of people worldwide passionate about using technology to help people learn and perform better. And I got hired to be their director of research and emerging technology because I came up with this idea of, hey, you've got these thousands of people that you can ask what's working, what doesn't, what approach, what tools are you using? But instead of making just these static PDFs, why don't we make interactive dashboards? They went, what are you talking about? Oh, allow people to apply filters and just say, hey, what do people in my industry think of? This is 2006. And they said, well, what tool should we use? And I said, oh, I happen to know of this really great one. It's called Spotfire. And I was kind of played around with this tool. And they said, before we go ahead and do this, why don't you look and see if there are other tools out there besides Spotfire? And almost to the day, 15 years ago, I downloaded Tableau. And that's what kind of began my journey down Tableau. By the way, there was no Power BI at the time. I don't think there was a Click at the time. And went, ooh, this is, I think, going to be better for our needs than Spotfire. By the way, the ace in the hole that Tableau had that Spotfire didn't was undo. Imagine doing all this work and going, well, that was a bad idea. Let me click undo a few and not being able to do that. Kind of like Chutes and Ladders and having to go back to the very beginning. So that was kind of the career. Was at the E-Learning Guild for 2.5 years, the Institute for Corporate Productivity for 2.5 years. They laid me off. So just a little over 10 years ago, it was on, what am I going to do? Put out my shingle as a data visualization consultant with a specialty in visualizing survey data. And that's what I've been doing for 10 years.
I want to pull up the timeline that you have on your website because check this out. Okay. We have got, of course, I know you're tool agnostic, Steve, but you have a specialty in Tableau, or at least I envision, I think you're very talented in Tableau. And look at this. You've got your cool timeline. I love this. I loved hovering over these earlier and learning about your musician background. This is so great. And then people who were here, was it last week that we talked about IronViz? Look at Steve. We actually, last week, Steve, we pulled up the top 10 entries. I was a judge for the 2020 finalists, and we looked at number 1 and number 10 and talked about what was working with them and how great they were doing. And Steve has, Steve won the first one in 2011. Let's talk about your books. So let's talk briefly about your first one, Big Book of Dashboards. Give us a quick summary of your first one. Like, who's it for? What's inside? Give us your synopsis.
So I was listening to an interview with Jordan Morrow, who was like head of data literacy at Click, and now is doing similar things at Pluralsight. And he has this new book out called Be Data Literate. And he was saying that he was dealing with organizations that were creating PowerPoint decks with like 500 slides in them. And it's funny because something like that was the catalyst for the Big Book of Dashboards. I told you that my little subspecialty is visualizing survey data, which you can imagine just makes me wildly popular at cocktail parties. People are just dying to talk about visualizing survey data. So I got hired by this client, and they had these massive traffic light colored trellised things, just all this, division and region and all these different categories. And just think lots of red, lots of yellow, lots of green, all trellised. And they said, it's taken 3 people working full time every month to produce this 500-page deck because they wanted every different slice of every different permutation filtered in every different way. He said, if we were to use Tableau, could we do this faster? And I said, well, yeah, but you don't have to make it look just like this. There are way better ways to present the data. And they said, really? What balanced scorecards are wonderful. They're red, yellow, and green, and everyone likes looking at them. And I said, well, let me try to make my case. And I wrote this little white paper saying, here's how you're doing it now. And look how much easier it is to make these comparisons. And I presented a whole other way to do it, like a bar chart with vertical lines showing how much you're ahead, how much you're below. Easy to compare this bar with this bar. It's really hard to compare how much darker is this green than this green. People can't do that. But bar length, they're amazing at. And there was like this wonderful 12-page description. Oh, if you have this situation, this scenario, this case, here's a good way to present the data. The client loved it. Their client didn't. And their client said, no, we want you to do it the way we've always done it, and their client is kind of a jerk. But by the way, I'm going to say that because you're going to fail a lot in trying to get people to adopt this stuff, and don't feel bad. Think of yourself as being like a major league ball player. If you succeed 30% of the time, you're an all-star. So as you try to get people to see stuff and try stuff, you're probably going to fail with it. But in any case, it became the catalyst for the book. It was, oh, if you have this situation, this scenario, this thing going on, here's maybe a good way to present the data. And the book is 28 different business scenarios. Hopefully, there's something in there that will match what you're looking for. Maybe not an exact match, but go, oh, this is kind of similar to what we're doing. What did these people do? And why is it working? And there are a lot of discussions in there. We'll show alternative ways of doing it. So that's the meat of the book. There's also a whole fundamentals of data visualization, because for some people, this may be their first book. And then there are a whole bunch of just general things of how to navigate and deal with the world. Like, what happens if somebody insists on a pie chart? How can you mitigate the damage of pie charts? And by the way, pie charts get a bad rap. They're very good for one thing, a part to whole relationship. You can see, is this more than a quarter? But with only 2 or 3 slices, and Anne's probably taking you through that, and you've probably discovered this on your own. What happens if people insist on using traffic light colors? Besides the fact that there's no way to unugly red and green, your inadvertent alienation of roughly one out of 10 men who are going to go, I don't see any difference in those colors. But the meat of it is, hey, you got this scenario, this situation. Here's a way. Here is what we think is an effective way to present it, and hopefully you can apply this to your own work as well. So that's the idea behind the Big Book of Dashboards. And I had the very good sense to get 2 ridiculously good collaborators on this thing, Andy Cotgreave and Jeffrey Schaefer, who just do absolutely stellar work. And what made it so much fun is we would debate this stuff. We would question each other. We go, is that the best way to show it? Maybe show it this way. And it kind of pushed us to do better work. And people ask, how do 3 people write a book together? Didn't you have fights? The reason it worked is we weren't like a band that was going to have artistic differences. It wasn't like me going, I don't want to play pop music anymore. I want to play jazz. We weren't trying to create art. We were seeking clarity. And so we all had the same goal, which, by the way, it's taken me 15 years, but I think the goal of anyone in data visualization is you're there to provide the greatest degree of understanding with the least amount of effort. The least amount of effort for your audience. You may have to work your ass off to create that thing but you're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to glean insight and shorten the time to insight. So we were all aligned with that goal. And I liked having people to challenge me. It was one of the reasons, the hope to have had engaged Anne with this is coming from a different background, different expertise. And it was like, oh, this could be someone who's not looking at it identically to me. That could be great.
So when Steve says, it is truly a big book, you can't see through the webcam, but it's, because it's square. Is it perfectly square? It's almost perfectly square. I love the square layout. If I ever write a book, I'm actually going to do it square. And it's thick. It's probably 1 inch thick. How many pages do we have? 432.
Hold on. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to dig something up.
While you dig that up, I will mention my favorite part of this is not just that it's square, but the structure, because it's only this much best practices. So it's 30 pages of best practices, which for me, teaching Dataviz best practices for a living, I was like, okay, cool. These are the key points. Phew, I know these. So, if you're experienced with Dataviz, you're kind of like, okay, good. This is, 30 pages is the right amount of just reassurance that you're on the right track. And it's not 30 pages of dense text. Obviously, there's tons of, maybe this is a text page, but most of the pages are really highly visual. And there's tons of white space, and the font size, thank goodness, Steve, you guys didn't go with font size 8. I can actually read it with my very thick contact prescription. And then the rest, like he was saying, it's all case studies. It's like this many case studies where there's maybe, I don't know, the chapters vary in length, 5 to 10 pages maybe of case studies of all sorts of dashboards. So a lot of times people email me and they're like, hey, we're putting together this dashboard for our nonprofit or our foundation or our government agency. Do you have any examples from groups you've worked with? And like, this is the book of examples and inspiration where you can see, oh, they tracked this metric and here's how they visualized it, and the author's commentary on what's going well with it. What were you pulling up, Steve? Do you have it up?
And you were talking about the girth of the book. So, when you create when you're building, when you're working on any project, any creation, you have an idea of how people are going to use it, and then people come up with totally novel approaches to how they're going to use your book. And I loved when people would post this stuff on Twitter or LinkedIn, and this is one of my favorite ones. Let me share it with you. Wonderful use for the big book of dashboards. There we go. And the new book is the new book is intentionally not this thick thing or this large thing. I liked having this, like 9x9 thing, and it worked for dashboards, but I didn't want something that was imposing with the new book. I wanted something that people could read in a weekend and go from, gee, I didn't have a clue, to now I feel I'm fluent in graphics, in the wonderful made-up word is graphicacy. And so you would need 2 copies of the big picture to prop up the projector. You only need 1 of the big book of dashboards to prop up the projector. So there you go.
Look what I have in my desk.
Do you travel with a ruler?
No, I was going to hang curtains because we've lived in this house almost a year, and I was like, I should probably hang those curtains, but I need to get, a curtain rod. So, yeah, no, these are good lengths. What I mean to say is this isn't the type of book you'd read cover to cover. I think you'd skim the intro part, especially if you're newish to Dataviz, and be like, oh, this is how you use color. These are different chart types, pros and cons. But then I think you'd probably, choose the case studies that you feel like are most relevant to your workplace. I think very few Dataviz books I read cover to cover. I think it's more like, okay, this chapter is really relevant. I don't know. Maybe you wrote it intending to be read cover to cover, but so this is a great one to pick out. Like, okay, I'm going to read this case study.
Look, one of the best chapters in that book, I think it's absolutely brilliant, is the first chapter on the fundamentals of data visualization. I can say that without coming off like a jerk because I wrote virtually none of it. right? It's mostly Jeff and Andy, and they did a great job. I think I wrote the bit about the spooning skyscrapers, but otherwise this was their, and we realized, oh my gosh, this may be somebody's first data visualization book. They may never have looked at this stuff before. We need to kind of jumpstart them on it. But then it's, you're right, you read this thing cover to cover, that's, you're suffering from some serious insomnia. Because it's more, you should browse and look for, hey, is this going to be useful? It's, whoa, this one is really similar to what I'm looking for. And then there are a bunch of fun essays at the end, which is just kind of how to thrive in the real world, the data visualization. By the way, that's my biggest frustration about a lot of data visualization courses and books, about they're really removed from the real world. They'll talk about some of these amazing historic data visualizations, and the incredible passion that they'll have for them. And here's this brilliant pundit telling me that this is the most amazing data visualization ever. And then you go, well, how do I make something like that in my organization? And I go, you don't make something like that in your organization. It's not going to work. It worked great in the mid-19th century for this one situation. And that's, my biggest issue with some of the stuff that's out there.
So let's switch gears and talk about your latest book, The Big Picture. And speaking of imperfect examples and real life examples, I remember it could have been mid-20, I don't remember, whenever you were pulling together examples. I remember you wrote to me on like Twitter or LinkedIn and you said, do you have any case studies from real life projects? I don't want the perfect example. I want the real example. Nobody's dashboards in real life have this, perfection, whatever that means. I just want lots and lots of real life case studies. And I think that is much more valuable than like the one shiny chart that in real life, you don't have the staffing or the budget or the timeline to really produce. Okay, so you said the big book of dashboards is more practitioner focused. Tell us about the big picture. Who is this for? What's inside?
So it is for your audience right now. The people, and for organizations that have not yet embraced how transformative good data visualization can be. So in the same way that the first book came from client or clients who were, hey, we got this situation, what are we supposed to do? This came out of doing the workshop on the first book. First thing was, every time I started the workshop, I would start with the fundamentals of data visualization and think, doesn't everybody already know this stuff? And within 5 minutes, it's super clear they don't. And these are the practitioners. These are the people making the charts and dashboards don't get this. But then it was, well, if they don't get it, their audience isn't going to get it. But the other frustration was that my organization doesn't value what I bring to the table, doesn't value data visualization. People are clinging to spreadsheets. I'll create this thing that's useful and they'll say, hey, can you give me the data in a CSV? Because I just want to see it in a spreadsheet. And it's, my gosh, you're not comfortable with this language yet. Realize, by the way, sometimes no one wants to come off as being ignorant or dumb. So some people, rather than say, I don't understand the chart that you made, and saying, could you walk me through it? It's, oh, I don't like charts or whatever. I just want to see spreadsheets. And it may be that they don't know how to read it. The number of people that don't know how to read a scatter plot is pretty astounding. Pew Research did a study of like 10 basic science questions, and they found only 62% of Americans could read a scatter plot. And Carl Bergstrom, who was one of the authors on calling, it's probably less than 62%, because a quarter of the people who guessed, who got it right and guessed, 1/4 are going to guess right. So that's an issue that's there. But this is really to help the organizations that haven't yet realized just how transformative this can be, help them get it, which is what the last chapter is about. The examples of data visualizations that had a profound impact on the organization. Because when someone says, okay, show me a data visualization that changed the world, and they show you Florence Nightingale's rose or wedge chart from 1856, and yes, that changed the world. It changed the British healthcare system. But what does that have to do with what someone would be making now? And nothing. I would say you should not be making anything that looks like that. That was a very particular audience, fashioned in a very particular way, and Nightingale knew exactly what she was doing. So examples of some real world stuff, but also the desire to get everybody in the organization to a certain minimal level of fluency with graphs so that everyone can have intelligent discussions around the data. And very importantly, they'll have a greater appreciation for what everybody in this gathering brings to the table. Most of the people reading this book are not going to create charts and dashboards. I hope some of them do. I hope they want to be part of this community. But they need to appreciate just how important what you're doing is. So by the way, this is my stealthy way of saying I want you all to go out there and evangelize this book so they'll all appreciate you more and pay you more money.
I love, I hope I'm not breaking copyright rules. I'm going to show everybody this spread. This is towards the beginning when you're talking about like why dashboards instead of spreadsheets. I think this shows it. Okay. So it's like the regular table, the table with the bar charts. Of course, you can see insights faster, of course. But people in this course, Steve, it's more of an Excel-based dashboard course. So it's like, this is basically data bars. You all know how to do those. You've done a million, your data bar, bringing spreadsheets to life experts at this point.
We're doing this, where the example comes from is from the movie, Dolomite, with the Netflix movie. Eddie Murphy plays Rudy Ray Moore, who's this very blue comedian from the 1970s, and he's on the road with his comedy albums. He decides to finance his own movie, and no one wants to carry this. So he, in desperation, he rents a movie theater to show one show. And it's ridiculously popular. How many of you have seen that? Have any of you seen that the movie? Okay, the next scene is we see this really sleazy film distributor played by Bob Odenkirk of Better Call Saul. And he opens Variety magazine and he's looking at this table full of numbers and he sees something that astounds him. And it's like 98%. We have no idea what the 98%, but it's this big table full of numbers, and he's got to go through this table full of numbers. And then he looks and sees that the movie responsible for this astounding number is Dolomite, and he turns to the camera and says, "What the F-ity F?" And it gets this huge laugh. Now, you're all into data visualization. I can't help looking at it and go, "Oh my God, why wasn't that a bar chart?" Everyone reading the report would have seen it. 10 people would have been calling and all bidding for the rights to distribute this movie because it was this giant outlier, but it's buried because it's a number versus look how much bigger this bar is than the rest of these bars. By the way, this is the curse that we now have, is that we see stuff and you can't help but look at it and go, is that the best way to show that? I don't think so. And so this is how I'm watching this comedy movie with Eddie Murphy, excuse me. And I tried to get permission from Netflix, by the way, to have, Odenkirk and they wouldn't give it. So sorry.
So you mentioned earlier, you'd have to have really bad insomnia to read a 400-page book from start to finish. So last night I had insomnia. I have to wake up and feed the 3-month-old, right? So I'm like, cool, I'm interviewing Steve in like 5 hours or 12 hour, whatever. I should probably read that book that just came in the mail. So I'm reading the first part. I want to show you what I circled in the middle of the night. Actually, I can't show this because it has bad language on it.
No, it doesn't. That's a lot. This is
oh no, this one has the star. Okay,
it has the star. Hold on, I can.
Is it backwards? This is what I was
hold on.
circling in the middle of the night.
No. I can if you're highlighting this, I can share my screen and show it.
I just love the writing style is not like blah, 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 long sentences, GRE level words just to sound smart. It's data visualization can help us see opportunities faster. It can get us to the what the F-ity F faster.
There you go.
Yeah. But isn't that the point of all of this? I love it.
Well, that, by the way, that the introduction to the book, you can all download that for free. We'll send you on the link there so you can get the opening part of this. And if it looks like, yeah, this looks like it could be fun and useful, great. You can, pre-order the book or buy it when it comes out, but you have an easy try before you buy type of thing. So the whole, premise that sets up the purpose of data visualization and how it helps you glean insights faster, that's available for you to download for free.
Okay, so Steve, you have a theme in your books. You've got the big book of dashboards. I know why that one's called the big book of dashboards, but what about the big picture? Tell us about the gist of this name.
So hold on a sec, because I want to give exactly the right person credit for this, and why I really like my publisher on this one on a bunch of different levels. So the working title of the book was "Numbers Are Not Enough," and it was what every business person should know about data visualization. So if you look at the book proposal for this, it's numbers are not enough. And I said, well, we can do better than that. And it was actually somebody at McGraw-Hill, and in particular, Jonathan Sperling, who was just hired as an assistant editor, who came up with the idea, well, it's called The Big Picture. And then we brainstormed on the subtitle, how to use data visualization to make better decisions faster. So I can't take credit for the name The Big Picture. But what I liked when I said, hey, who came up with this name? The main editor, the acquisitions editor, her name is Casey Ebro. She was really quick to give somebody else credit. And by the way, when there were screw ups on the book, and anytime there are screw ups with any project, she was very quick to take responsibility for it. So she was the first person to take blame if there was a problem, and she was the first person to share or give credit to somebody else and said, oh my God, would you please run for office? It was really refreshing. So my hats off. The only problem with the name, The Big Picture, is if you go to Amazon and type The Big Picture, there's like 20 different books called The Big Picture, So there needs to be a disambiguation modifier in there. The Big Picture Data, The Big Picture Wexler, something like that, and you will be able to find it easily enough. So I love the name of it, because that's really what you are trying to give with this, and then drill down to the details. But there are a lot of books having nothing to do with data called The Big Picture. So that's my very long-winded answer to your question, Anne.
No, I love it. You're going to have to write a third book with big in it.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a third book? I know you haven't even officially sold the second one yet, and it's not even officially out, but
so
I hope you write a third one.
The next one, I would like the joy and delights of it just being text, a novel. That the amount of extra work that needs to go into producing something which is high quality 4-color type of stuff, and the angst that's associated with it. Also, the number, there's only one now. There's only, it's worth it. It's wonderful, but it's a lot of, it's a fair amount of extra work. So I'm thinking, yeah, the next time around, just text. And hats off to Moana Eichner and Lee Fuki. They had to do the whole layout of this. I produced all the graphs, or there are a lot of third-party graphs in there, but they handled the layout of this thing, and it's hard. And I wanted to keep the cost down and the scariness factor down. I didn't want a 9x9 book, Anne, which I thought was right for the big book of dashboards, but kind of making this fit and make it still readable. So they did a great job with this.
Let me ask you one more question. I brainstormed a whole long list of things I wanted to ask you about, but and then I want to turn it over to audience Q&A. So everybody be thinking of questions you have for Steve about Dataviz, dashboards, I told them they could ask you about Tableau, even though they're tool agnostic. So be thinking of your questions, type them into the chat. We'll get to as many as we can. But Steve, my last official question for you is favorite parts of your book. Do you have a favorite chapter or spread or page or topic that you got to write about?
The favorite chapter, and it's may come off as somewhat controversial, is the 8th chapter, which is about why knowing your audience is so important. And the problem I have with the famous Menard chart showing Napoleon's campaign of 1812 to 1813 being held up as maybe the greatest statistical chart of all time, and the Florence Nightingale chart. And I felt the amount of damage that has been done by holding up these things as things that you are supposed to emulate, as opposed to, well, this is an art history class or a data visualization history class. Let's study this equivalent of the Mona Lisa. So I felt it was very important to take both of these things on and just remind both the recipient and the creator that the creator, the person making the stuff, is trying to serve a certain audience. And Charles Menard was serving, absolutely knew his audience. By the way, there are other charts that Menard made besides that one. Some of them are way more applicable to business. There's a book called The Menard System by Sandra Rengren. It's a great book. And you look at this other stuff from Menard and go, well, it could be useful in what we're trying to do in our business, as opposed to this, this one-off. I've learned this new term from this great guy in data visualization. His name is Robert Kosara. Hapex legomenon. What the heck does that mean? A one-off, a word that is only used once in an entire book. And he says the Menard chart is a one-off. So that's probably my favorite chapter in the book, because I feel I'm trying to put these two charts where I think they belong, and trying to get people to think about, how do I best serve my audience? Because that's what you're there for.
Sandra, what's her last name? Rengren. I heard her on a podcast recently. She has such a wealth of information about historical data viz, more than maybe anybody I've seen. You've all seen the Menard map, right? I know I closed the book, but it's the one about Napoleon's march.
You want to see a big book? That's a big book. Okay.
That's
the history
hers, right?
of information graphics. And that's one of her, one of the things she's put together. Okay. This will really prop up the projector.
Steve, I literally have Tufte's book propping up my monitor, and what's underneath it? There's 3 books to get my monitor to be the right height for me. So I had to choose hardcovers, and his is hardcover. Let me tell you briefly my favorite part. And then we've got some questions from Elizabeth and Ellen that we'll get to. My favorite part is actually the scaredy cat. This is the caution what not to do. And that is a technique I wish more data viz authors would do. I think everybody should do, because I've been in workshops in person where somebody's like, you said only to use pie charts in these circumstances, but I have this book and it shows pie charts and they say how great they are. And like, not exactly. If you read the dense paragraph above it, it actually is explaining why that's not a good example. But that just shows the power of data viz, right? As everybody opens a book and you look right at the pictures and you don't read every single paragraph. And, people do a skim of a book and they leave with the wrong information. So I've started doing on my slides like a big red X just to make it really clear when not to do something. You've got the scaredy cat comparing your like, don't do this example. And then anything without a scaredy cat is a good example. So I love that technique. I know it's a little detail, but we don't want people walking away with the totally wrong idea of what we're advising them to do or not to do.
That was always my frustration of reading other people's data visualization books. I'll open something to a page. I'll look at something that looks suspicious and I'll go, should I be making this or avoiding this? Could you make it really clear? So hence the
Well,
reason for the icon.
like you said, with the book layouts, it's really tricky when there's a lot of visuals, because I think sometimes the paragraphs are on one page, but then the visual it's talking about is on the next, so it's tricky. Well, let's go into some questions with our remaining time. Elizabeth, do you want to speak your question since you're here?
Sure.
You're on video. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so this is a Tableau question, Steve. Just want to tell you too, I love your book. I have it. I've had it for a couple of years. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm trying to use a swap sheets function with a parameter showing number versus percent. So on one sheet, I show number, you click percent, and it flips it to the percent. And I'm able to get the percent to show on top of the number sheet, but the tooltip isn't working on the percent. So just on the number sheet, do you have any ideas? I have used Tableau's help. I've used their online search, and whatever they're suggesting isn't working for me for some reason.
So it's probably a small thing because it's the tooltip, and the tooltip needs to be hip to the fact that, this is the case at the moment, so I should be showing percent, not number. So this the specific thing. Elizabeth, I'm pretty sure I have an idea of how to fix this. So if you want to just send me if you're allowed to, if you want to just send me the packaged workbook, I'll have a look at it and see if we can get that happening quickly. Hey, before, I was going to say we could do really quickly to see, it's unlikely. It's probably about 40%. Should we see if two people share the same birthday? I'm not feeling real optimistic about it. Should we try that quickly? If two people share the same birthday, one of you gets the big book of dashboards, the other gets the big picture. All right. So if you were born in January, type something into chat. By the way, if not, the two people whose birthday is closest to mine. Okay, no, give me the day in January you were born. You're born in January 5th, January 3rd. Oh, we are January 14th. Oh, we are so close. By the way, we've only got 18, January 20th. Dang. Boy, we just shot everything here. All right, if you were born in February, go ahead, type in the day you were born. Nobody in February 24th. Hello, Stephanie. All right, it's March. If you were born in March, let's see if we get two people. March 27th. March 20th. All right, April. Anyone for April? April 28th. Anyone else? It's not looking good here. I would never make a bet with only 18 people. How about May? Anyone born in May? June. If you're born in June, give me your month and day. July. Anyone in July? August. Who was born in August? August 18th. Anyone else in August? September. Anyone born in September? September 19th, September 28th. Anybody else? Okay, the October, November, December, that's getting close to my birthday, all right? October 17th. Anyone else in October? November, anyone in November? November 13th. Anyone else in November? November 8th. Okay, my birthday is November 10th, by the way. So, and you get a free copy of this. It looks like, Melissa, you're getting one or the other. Okay, December. Ooh, close there. So we've got, and you already have copies of these things. So let's see, October 17th or December 4th. October 17th would be, how many days? Is it, are we exactly splitting this thing? That's 24 days and 24 days, roughly, between there. So Melissa, you definitely get one. And Bob and Kristen, hey, I'll donate a copy of the big picture to one of them. So Kristen and Bob will get each of you something. So I'm happy to donate to the cause.
I'm happy to donate to the cause. Okay, so Melissa, Bob, and Kristen, I might have your address somewhere from past mailings, but just email me your address and I'll get you some books. Cool. I told you, Steve, before we started, I was like, I bet Bob's gonna win something. He seems to always win all the giveaways and the gifts. Okay. Oh, we're almost out of time. This isn't even fair. Let me scroll up and Laura, I think your question's gonna be really quick. Steve will either know or not. So why don't you ask your question? Is Laura still here?
Sure. So you were speaking about classic visualizations, and there is a classic visualization which I cannot find again. It's a depiction of fire, speed up a hill, and evacuation times overlaid with an actual fire event. So when you're reading it as an audience member, you make sense of the data, and then you observe the inevitable death of several firefighters.
So Laura, let me do this. If you or somebody else can just send that to me in an email, we are going to use the collective consciousness of the data visualization community. You know, I will tweet this and we'll get a bunch of people on this. And if it is findable, my guess is within 2-3 hours, we're going to find it.
What's interesting is it was a presentation delivered by a gentleman who was older with overhead slides. So it was before PowerPoint. So it's just an interesting historical piece, and I'm sure it will emerge, but that's great if you've got the reference for it.
It's interesting that, you know, obviously, you know, that it's not in a readily available electronic format.
It may be, but at the time, like I'm saying, his iteration wasn't, but it'll be.
So send what you can that makes it as, you know, the disambiguation, you know, the keywords or whatever. And, you know, I'm not going to do the same thing you undoubtedly did, which is, you know, I'll Google this, etc.
Right.
But let's instead hit up the ever so generous data visualization community.
Sure. Thank you. I'll do that.
Yep. Let's see what we can find out.
I have a clue that it might be part of the Mann Gulch fire, MANN Gulch fire, because I know that was a big like fire disaster for wildland firefighters. So I would start there with Google Mann Gulch fire.
Great.
See where that takes
Or
us.
was it something to do with the triangle shirtwaist?
We'll see.
Disaster.
Thank you.
Okay. This is now interesting. You got us, you know.
Yeah, I'm going
and,
to totally do it on my rig.
So I'm interested in the second item from Ellen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ellen, you're here. You want to speak your question and we'll hear Steve's. We'll have to do a quick response because I know people have to head to meetings, but I'll be around. All right, Ellen, tell us your question.
Hello, Steve. How would you describe the connection between data visualization and storytelling?
Just consider it part of a whole, you know, continuum of this stuff. So, you know, one of my favorite practitioners in that space is Cole Nussbaumer Knaflic and storytelling with data. But I think of a dashboard as a place to find where your best stories are. I had the delight of taking one of her workshops shortly before my book came out, and kind of, you know, panicking, going, man, what she's doing, her stuff's just great. Why is anyone going to need this, you know, this book about dashboards? And then she used this phrase. She said, you know, one of the problems people have when they present their findings is you have to shuck a lot of oysters to find a pearl. Don't show everybody all the oysters you shucked. Oh, we did all this, blah, blah, blah. Just show them the pearl. And then I thought about, oh my God, a dashboard, a good dashboard can be this automated oyster shucker, and will help you find some really great insight. And oh my gosh, this is, but then it's what am I going to do with it? Do I just leave it right there? Do I copy it into PowerPoint with some really good call outs in it? that says, oh, are they going to discover this? If I send it to them, will they see the thing I want them to see? Or do I need a big arrow, that essentially says, look at this? Or how am I going to, create the tension and the narrative around it? And I think any of you who have gotten adept at presenting have kind of have a sense of, okay, I need to cue this up. I need to get people engaged and I need to give them the payoff. I would hardly say, I don't feel qualified to teach that stuff. But I feel pretty good about all right, I'm going to help you find the right visualization that you're going to build the story on. How you craft that story, a lot of that's part you. And a lot of it is, I just kind of have been an admirer of Anne's for a while, and sort of she can coach you brilliantly on this stuff. But I can't say enough good stuff about Cole's book and her approach, storytelling with data. It's good stuff.
Steve, we're out of time. What's the best way for people to stay in touch with you? Website, mailing list, preferred social media accounts?
So go to, let me type this in. So if you go to, so the name of the book is The Big Picture, but I'm going to give you a very simple URL. And this is where you can download the introduction to the book. If you like it, consider pre-ordering on Amazon. The more people who do that, the more likely the price will drop by a lot. There's a guarantee on so that if you order it now for $38 and it comes down to 26, you get it for 26. I have no idea what the pricing is going to be when it eventually hits. But if you start there with bigpic.me, you'll find me easily enough. You'll find, my Twitter handle, you'll find my email address, etc. So
thank you so much. We should really catch up more than every 5 or 6 years.
yes. No, hey, let's set an appointment. Let's set this right now. Okay. What are you doing May 18th, 2027?
I'll be here.
Okay. All
Chatting
right.
with you.
Folks, it was a pleasure. Great to meet you all. Hope we get to meet in person sometime, and good luck with your endeavors. Thanks so much.